Welcome to the SBCA podcast, Component Connection, where we explore the people, ideas, trends, and innovations shaping the market and the future of structural building components. Whether you're on the shop floor, in the office, in the yard, or out in the field, we're glad you're here.
Hello and welcome to Lumber Connection, which is now a member of the Component Connection family. It's the week of June 9th, 2025, and I'm back in the studio with my regular experts, Justin Binning and Ken Timmons. Justin and Ken are from American International Forest Products, or AIFP. Welcome to the podcast, gentlemen.
Hey there, Molly. Hi, thanks, Molly.
Hey. You know, I bet that intro sounded a little different for anyone that's been listening for any length of time, but I'm excited to announce that we're simultaneously streamlining and expanding SBCA's podcast offerings. Both Component Connection and the Lumber Connection podcast have been around for a very long time, and we've decided to merge them into the same space so you can find all the great information SBCA has to offer through one podcast. Along with that, we're excited to be expanding the scope of the Component Connection podcast to highlight the many ways SBCA supports its members and the broader structural components industry. Not only will you still be hearing from me, Molly Butts, and more importantly, my lumber experts every month, you'll also be hearing from more of our SBCA team, each bringing their own perspective and expertise on topics that matter to you. Beyond lumber, we'll be talking about everything from technical standards and safety practices to business development, workforce, and advocacy. But today we're still going to be talking about lumber. So guys, what's been happening in the lumber market over the last few weeks? We haven't talked in ages.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. I was thinking about this. It's like, yes, you're right. But it also, for whatever reason, feels like it's like it was last week or 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So, but I think that's also just, I guess, a factor of getting older because time seems to be speeding up.
It does.
And the years go by.
Think about why that happens to us as we age. Yeah.
Yeah, it is funny, right? It's like my son just graduated 5th grade.
Oh, congrats, Dad.
Yeah, that's right. And, but like, you know, his year feels like an eternity and like, you know, his summer is going to feel, you know, like forever. And I remember those days vaguely. Days felt like weeks and anyways, but yeah, so definitely some shift. I think with the last time we left off, you know, we were kind of felt like we were hitting the top of the market and felt like things were going to start coming back to us in terms of pricing. And that's really, you know, it's been the case for the last few weeks. And it you know, 6-inch kind of led the way and followed by the wider dimensions, and 2x4 kind of hung in there for a couple of weeks longer than everybody else. And then it made its descent. So with that said, now that we're kind of getting into this spot, so really, again, over the last 4 weeks, if you've been out purchasing lumber, I'm sure you've felt it and seen it and hopefully taken advantage of some of these good deals that have been out there. But now it feels like we're entering a place where there's going to be another shift. 6 inches reach levels that we, you know, haven't seen for several months, or really back into the end of last quarter from a mill base level. So it really feels like we're putting in a bottom there on 2x6. We're well below profitability levels for the sawmill. And I think most buyers out there right now are seeing the low risk, high reward with 2x6. So we use the slogans and stuff in certain times in the market, and investment level would be one that would be brought up right now. And I wouldn't disagree. I think it's a great time to, you know, load up on some 2x6, great pricing there. So with that said, it feels like 2x4 might have a little more to go in it. And, you know, in terms of the wides, it's, you know, I think we're pretty close on a lot of those as well. So the stress grade material is extreme value. The spreads between number one and the MSR has been pretty slim. So I think there's a lot of value to be said right now in MSR. Availability is pretty good overall. Some order files getting pushed out 1 to 2 weeks there. But for the most part, if you need MSR, you can find it.
Good.
And I mean, other than that, it's been, you know, I'd say the nice thing, even in a tough market with the, you know, in 2025, liquidity is still there. And we talked about it this morning in our morning meeting. So trading is good. You know, it doesn't maybe feel as good some days or others, but you know, we're trading lumber every single day and a lot of it. So it's just a matter of making sure we understand our customers' needs, their priorities, and matching those up and finding the best deals for them every day. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of that. So Yeah.
Out west, I agree with what Justin's saying. It's not a flashy market by any means, but there's still a lot of wood moving every day. It doesn't feel wild and robust and exciting and enthusiastic, but when we look at the numbers, there's actually high volumes getting moved. And I think the thing that's very interesting is it's a lot of orders spread across many customers, not large blocks going to one person, not anyone extending themselves out too far. But on any given product food group, we might have 25 customers check in for a truck or two, which is interesting. There is a lot of liquidity. And of course, with, if you want to call it political uncertainty or interest rate concerns or whatever it may be, people rein in their buying a little bit, which is creating that kind of sporadic liquidity that we're seeing. There was some production curtailments out of the West, not predominantly from sawmills that make cord stock and web stock products, but fir mills did curtail gently here over the last few weeks. Most of those mills are now back on, so we'll see that impact the market. I am seeing a lot of fir sawmills focus on hem fir and white fir because they can get those logs for cheaper than Douglas fir. Therefore, Douglas fir has had some strength. It's also kind of a fun market from the sense of when we're speaking with sawmills and customers and manufacturers, users, distributors, doesn't matter who it is, I feel like they're paying attention more than typically. The story is not so clear, right? This isn't a highway that's a straight line through the interstate. You're kind of bobbing and weaving all around and things are happening and it's not consistent from one producer to the next or one product line or market, or the whole thing's very intricate right now, which is making our job very fun. I think I get to work with a lot of really savvy, smart buyers who have worked through decades of markets, and I love picking their brains. And I would say some of the folks I would kind of reserve as being sharper on market calls and trends are hoping that cord stock, for example, one of our Select Shock MSR products, kind of level out here throughout the summer months. So far, that prediction's correct. I do think it might wane throughout the summer months, just from the standpoint of the last handful of years, the summer market has been pretty tough to trade through. 21 was tough, 22 was tough, 23 was tough, 24 is tough. Not a lot of reason to think that demand bolsters here in 25 and things get jumping. Although right before we came in to record the podcast, I did see there was a little bit of news about a new Fed chair. I won't name drop or say anything. By the time this podcast gets posted, we'll probably have all those details out. But there could be some foundation there for possible interest rate changes, which could engage the multifamily sector a little heavier, which really has largely been a missing piece over the last few months. And that's a lot of wood that gets consumed into that sphere of construction. So all things considered, healthy market, very fun, lots of change. I mean, there's not one way to make a blanket statement about how fir is moving from forest to mill to wholesale to end user right now. The puzzle changes every day and it's been fun solving it.
Yeah, it's interesting. You use the word intricate. I'll be curious to see if that starts to be a little bit of a recurring theme for the next little bit. But I like the way that makes it's interesting. We've talked about choppy marks. We talked about some other things, but intricate is an interesting way to phrase it. So I'll be listening for that from you guys coming up. You also mentioned some small curtailments. My question about that is not, are there more coming necessarily? It is, but let me phrase it the right way. I feel like if I'm recalling correctly, like mid to late summer becomes a time where there are curtailments for maintenance for a very specific purpose. Do you guys think that will continue to be the case this year as we head into, say, late July, August?
Yes, absolutely. And that is some of the curtailments I'm mentioning were for those reasons, new planer installation or, there were some that were also market driven, saying, hey, we're going to pull back. We're not making enough money. We're going to take 2-3 weeks off, hope that the market in June is better. And the mills that did that, frankly, are coming back to a market that is a little bit better. Sure. It was a good play, which is great. And then also, I mean, not a curtailment per se, but the species swapping that I'm talking about. Yeah. Mills running maybe they'll run 2 or 3 weeks of a certain species. That's the only time it runs through the mill all year. Those took place. Kind of pulling away from the traditional bread and butter items and letting those markets level out. In general, I'd say order files are about 2 to 3 weeks across the board with fir mills. I pride myself on being a bit of a whistleblower when I think mill order files are a little bit fluffed. to create the illusion of market strength. I do believe the order files right now. I don't think there's fluff in there. I don't think it's a house of cards. If you get quoted a car for 3 weeks out, probably ships 3 weeks out. You're not getting a car number in 3 or 4 days. So that's healthy. That's very good for the trend. Now, obviously, we do have a holiday week coming up. Holidays do have a way of making or breaking markets. So just keep an eye peeled there. We're a few weeks out from that. So, but all things considered, healthy, fun trading environment out west.
You talked a little bit about curtailments. And one of the things we often talk about would be something, to do with transportation. Are either of you seeing any hiccups in rail or trucks? And to go along with that, I guess my question that kind of goes along with what you were just talking about is, what does prompt wood look like these days too?
Yeah, and just to touch on the curtailment, to echo Ken's sentiment, typically historically, June in yellow pine trading is not a great month. I mean, that's just the historical standard. It feels like that's probably going to be the case until maybe we get a push, to Ken's point, maybe around the holiday. I expect July to see an uptick. And then in terms of curtailments, that's typically late July, August in the U.S. South. And that's also the dog days of summer, of course, too, when we typically see a slowdown there as well in consumption. So those probably offset each other, pretty evenly. And then we'll kind of grind through that late summer month and get ready for a fall run. So that's the, call it the 90-day look right there in a quick 20-second synopsis. And then to answer your question, in terms of trucking, it felt like, and maybe it was the last podcast, maybe it was the one before, and I feel like I even said it, was like, trucking's getting better.
Yeah.
I wish I would have never said that.
Oh,
and I'm
no.
not sure if I just was having a good day or a couple trucks got booked that were like really fast or something.
Yeah.
Because it's tough. Trucking is tough, both capacity and then obviously the overall, when you get the bill in the mail is brutal too. So prompt wood right now, most spots for me, 7 to 10 days. Ooh. And I say that if you heard that kind of my tone inflection, I had my fingers crossed, and my listeners can't see me, but that's kind of how I feel. Sometimes it's longer, and if it hits that 7 days, you feel like, man, that was great. Or 5 days, you're kind of jumping up from joy, and you feel like, man, that moved fast. Yeah. Lumber is not the attractive thing to haul. Usually, it's not paying the most. And it's kind of last on the list that somebody wants to pick up in a lot of cases. Obviously, that can differ for backhauls or for other reasons. But if there's something else to haul, they're going to haul that. I mean, the majority of the time. So a lot of these reloads too, there's been some shift in management and how they prioritize things. And you got to get an appointment, and they're booked out 2 weeks, and you got wood on the ground and it's ready. It's sitting there, and you're on the phone with your customer like, no, it's on the ground. Well, it's prompt then, right? Well, no, not really, And so it's been a challenge. I mean, it's frustrating, obviously, from our desk too, because our number one goal is, as I said earlier, is to meet our customers' needs and make them happy. But I'm certainly spreading the word and will continue to my customer base, stay out of it. If don't dwindle it down to the dirt and then pick up the phone and expect a miracle to happen. You'll have to lean on distribution in that point, and you're going to pay a premium for it. So if you can give yourself, again, at least a week, really preferably 2 weeks lead time, that's the way to do it right now, without a doubt. So trucking has been tough, at least, from my perspective, overall, down south.
Well, now I'm terrified to give you the good news out west. I'm having a good time. I think pricing has been very flat. Availability has been fine. Golly, I'm trying not to jinx myself here, but all's good. I'm actually having more trouble with rail, frankly.
Really?
I have a few markets in particular in the Southwest where rail cars are spinning around the reload for 30 or 40 days at a time, which is tough. Obviously, it's the woods. It's warm weather, and it's just sitting there.
Yep.
So we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
There's my issue of the week, rail.
Yeah, and to touch on rail, and I didn't. Good. 2 thumbs up.
Okay. All right.
Out of the U.S. South. Usually, if wood's there, and then they've got cars on the sheet, or they want to sell cars, I'm getting a car number in typically 2 to 3 days. So car capacity out of the South seems fine. Things are moving fluidly there.
Good. Well, and actually, you guys more than usual have sprinkled what felt like a lot of really good, advice. I always ask if you got any advice along the way, but I guess sort of on that vein, what are your thoughts this week on strategies for our component manufacturers with regard to sourcing and purchasing that you haven't already shared because you've really done a great job this time of sewing that all together, weaving it together.
Yeah, and I think again from the stress grade standpoint with the narrows or even in your 2x8, feel great about making some moves there. Like I said, 2x6 is at the bottom. So if you're looking for it and you think it's going to get cheaper over the next couple of weeks, it's not going to. If there's a buildup per chance, maybe you'd save a few bucks more, but you're going to have to get really lucky to be able to do that. I think that the time to buy right now in 6-inch, without a doubt. Again, like I said, I think 4-inch got a little ways to go, but if you think you're going to buy a bottom and nail the exact bottom, you're buying the bottom right now is essentially what you're doing. So, I like where pricing's at. I think it's a good time to get inventory starting to get bolstered because I do think, as I said earlier, I think we'll have a pretty solid month of July and a nice little push there in pricing on pretty much, everything. So beat the others to the punch. Be the smart guy, get in before everybody else. Make sure you get your tallies that you like, the products that you like. And you can maybe be a little picky right now, where in 2 weeks you might not be able to be so picky. So that would be my 2 cents.
I totally agree with Justin. The smart guys out west that are punching on web stock. I would lean back on your cord stock. I'd really give a solid run at your web stock products. I don't see those getting much cheaper. Cord might plateau a little bit here through June and first part of July.
All right. Well, that was some great advice. I'm excited about our new format. I think for now that probably wraps up our episode for this week. Justin, Ken, thank you for your continued expertise and enthusiasm. As always, I've enjoyed our time together, albeit brief, and I look forward to our next lumber-focused installment of Component Connection.
Lovely. Thanks,
Molly.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to Component Connection, brought to you by SBCA. If there's a topic you'd like us to explore in a future episode, email us at podcast@sbcacomponents.com. Until next time, stay connected.